Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And I think whenever I see and I hear our national anthem, it always gives me goosebumps because we put such a lovely and such an impactful um, national anthem that it's always sort of gives you, your spirits goes really high with it. Well, that was just beside the point. So I think I'll welcome both my guests, Haya Sehgal and Mushahid Hussain Syed. And it's about the book which Haya has, it's a compilation of her articles which she has been submitting to various newspapers, and it's on the social, cultural impact which it has been creating. And while I was going through the book, the first question which came to my mind was that, why has she focused only on social and cultural? Why not religious aspect? That's also a very important part which, and area which plays an important part in the total Tana Bana of our society. So Haya, what do you have to say on that? Why not religious?
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you to everybody for being here, especially Mushahid Saab and Raheela. Thank you for agreeing to do this. Yeah, I think that's a very pertinent question, but before we jump into this, perhaps we could start with just social and cultural before we just jump into. This started with a pitch to Daily Times, and with such giants going into the paper, defense analysts, economists, commentators. I was also wondering why the editor wanted me to pull me into op-eds. I would have just covered social and cultural events, and we cannot separate the average Pakistani from the social or cultural aspects. I think that's interwoven into the fabric of our being. And I would have imagined that covering cultural events and being such an opinionated person, opinions started coming out. Whether it was a literature festival, whether it was a PSL match, I started analyzing the security situation around, how easy it was for women now to go about freely. And obviously it was written during the time. I mean, it was covering a couple of years. So it started with the previous government, and I was actually looking at impact change, any kind of positive change. And when I pitched that to the editor, she said, this is pretty refreshing and it's very different. Amongst 250 journalists and experts, she said, I think this is going to be a very different way of looking at it. And she just pulled me into that. It started with festivals and cultural events, concerts. Why were they good for us? Why was a photography club where people in Pakistan before, they didn't have that security or knowledge to group together and start taking photographs of cultural sites. It started lighter, but then it became a little more serious. As the book goes on, you would see that through the volume.
Okay, so you have called it Resilient Pakistan. We had been hearing about Jinnah's Pakistan. So I'll ask Mushahid Saab about this, that when we say Jinnah's Pakistan and we talk about Resilient Pakistan, is Resilient Pakistan the path towards Jinnah's Pakistan, or is just another wordings that we used?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Good morning and Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Before I answer your question, I would like to thank Ikram and other friends, and also congratulate his illustrious daughter for taking this initiative. But I'd also like to recognize, because you talk of Jinnah's Pakistan and Resilient Pakistan, I think two men sitting in the front row who epitomize that. One is Hamid Mir, eminent journalist, and I think he's a national icon. And the other is General Ali Quli. Because both in their own ways, General Ali Quli is a democratic general, a thinking general, and both he and Hamid Mir have had the courage to speak truth to power. Of course, Mr. Hamid Mir is very lucky. He survived assassination attempts from various sources because he spoke the truth. And more power to his voice and more power to his pen, inshallah. And also to General Ali Quli as head of the veterans of Pakistan. You speak for not just the veterans, but for Pakistanis. And I think that I myself am a product of the cantonment culture. My father, late Colonel Amjad Hussain Syed Sahab, was PA 449 January 42. The things that we are happening today were unheard of because the cantonment culture was a democratic and a tolerant culture, an inclusive culture. So they don't divide politically. But anyway, it reflects that the strength of Pakistan is not what I call the soft state, but the strong society. And in that strong society, I think Haya's voice represents the 21st century Pakistani youth. And if you talk of Jinnah's Pakistan, the same question if you ask today, where is Gandhi's India? Or where is Jeffersonian America? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, peace, and non-violence. Those are issues which countries, not just like Pakistan, other countries too face. Because one claims to be the oldest democracy, which is the biggest imperialist power today, aiding and abetting imperialism. And the other one is the largest democracy, which is a fascist and racist state under killers of Gandhi. And yesterday I was reminded of Haya, your book, and the title of the book. I was at a meeting to organize a citizens' rally against the Gaza genocide, which we are having on 7th November at the Press Club at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, and you are all cordially invited, by the way. So I said, we should also speak up when we hear of, in the news internationally, the demonstrations in London, Rome, Paris, New York, Washington, D.C., Istanbul, Jakarta, Islamabad, the capital of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, is missing. So I felt that we should have a broad-based, and I met trade unionists, I met business leaders, I met media people, I met civil society and women, all very motivated, and I could feel that resilience. And the thing I liked about Haya's book is two things, it's inspired by the ideals and vision of the Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, probably the greatest Muslim statesman of the 20th century, along with Ataturk. And secondly, it is anchored in a very can-do optimism and confidence of the youth, which is the majority of Pakistanis. So normally these days there's a lot of this gloom and doom. We are part of the cribbing club. बहुत रोना धोना होता है हर चीज में भी मारे गए लुटे गए. She has that spunk and the guts. She's a gutsy girl, and she says, okay, we can do it. And I think that is him, which is challenging the status quo and focusing on change.
I think Haya is the voice of the youth.
Yes.
And her positivity and the way she has compiled her articles and the tone which she has used in the book, it's something which one can relate to. And I noticed that she has sort of given 2 or 3 articles on and focused on Muhtarma Fatima Jinnah. So is she your inspiration, or it was the resilience you talk about, because she was the backbone of the Qaid, she has been his right hand. So can you just shed lights on that?
Well, this came from the aspect of speaking to Liaquat Merchant. I was doing a research article on Fatima Jinnah. We always had throughout growing up, we didn't have much literature on her, and the ones that we did have were pretty sparse. It came through that aspect, and then the exploration jumped, if you see the other article, to a bitter and harsh reality of why didn't we do this? Why didn't we talk about her enough? I mean, she was a role model for so many people. Why was this person or persona hidden over the years of history? Who hid her? Why did they censor her? Why did they? She was Madre Millet. So what was? And I think when that started happening, I started talking to Liaquat Merchant about Jinnah's Pakistan, and he said, I think you must write more about it. And if you see from the beginning of the book, it starts off, which I felt was very naively as a young writer starting out and wanting to see beautiful Pakistan trend and have that patriotism. And then it moves towards this current theme to acceptance of harsh realities. And then, I've even made fun of myself. In the beginning, I've called the first volume Through Rose-Colored Glasses.
Yeah.
Because it moves. And But however, when other people read it, the owner of a newspaper called me up and he said, I don't think it was naive at all. I don't think it was immature at all. I think that you had some kind of spirit, and he didn't, I'm very blessed that despite differing opinions, that I was surrounded by people who let me have that voice, whether it was the papers, the editors, and even my own family.
Great. So
I'd just like to add what she said about Madre-Millat, because I think that Madre-Millat Fatima Jinnah was a very great lady, and the decision when the Qaid-e-Azam decided that he was very clear after the October 1937 session of the All India Muslim League in Lucknow, which incidentally my father attended as a student leader of Muslim Students Federation, the Qaid set up two wings of the Muslim League. One was the youth wing, one was the women's wing, and that's where Madre-Millat came side by side with him to tell the Muslim women that time has come out and struggle for Pakistan. And that is the key thing. And Haya in a book mentions her as one of the symbols of women's empowerment and a role model for Muslim women. And I think she's one of our unsung heroes.
I was about to say that over a period of time, somehow or the other, her contributions, whatever she has been doing, it has just gone and vanished somewhere. And
I think it's been taken over by a different aspect of what we describe now as feminism, but she was definitely a feminist leader back then.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
She was leading women's rallies back then, but somehow all of this got drowned by what we see as active feminism, and it just gets taken from one lens, that this happened now in Pakistan, but it didn't. It was happening back then to create Pakistan.
And Raheela, we should not forget one thing. We talk of fundamentalism or secularism and right and left politically. In 1965, the combined opposition parties included Wali Khan, Maulana Maududi, all the Hussain Syed Sorwardi had died before, but Awami League and Maulana Bashani, all of them supported Madre-Millat Fatima Jinnah as the unified candidate against Field Marshal Ayub Khan. And if the elections had not been rigged, I think she would have won the election, because she won in East Pakistan, by the way. She won in Karachi also.
Yes.
And even the BD system, if the elections had not been rigged, perhaps the history of Pakistan would have been different. So because of her standing up to Ayub Khan, and then I think the officially certified truth, as I call it, जो सरकारी सच हम कहते हैं, जिसके खिलाफ हामिद साहब आप भी बड़ी बात करते हैं, तो वो that I think drowned out her actual contribution and role because of that reason. And then later on, politics also takes over.
Because I think over a period of time, we've developed this habit of changing the history.
Yes.
Or over a period of time, I think शायद a couple of decades down the line, सच और झूठ का फर्क भी शायद नहीं बता सकेंगे हमारे youth, unless we have voices like Haya, the youth who's representing, who have the courage
Who put it to
speak.
place it on record, the contribution.
Exactly. That it has to be brought in black and white so that people and the next generation they could remember, they could recall. So but you'll also
इसमें एक और बात मैं कर दूं, इनकी मैं quote लेके आया हूं about the Qaid-e-Azam also. The Qaid-e-Azam was a big supporter of feminism and women's rights in those days. आप देखें इनकी quote आपने जो मेरी की है, I have always maintained that no nation, and this is quote from your page 19 of your book. I've always maintained that no nation can ever be worthy of its existence that cannot take its women along with the men. No struggle can ever succeed without women participating side by side with men. There are two powers in the world. One is the sword and the other is the pen. There is a great competition and rivalry between the two. There is a third power stronger than both, that of the women. Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Look at that. It's so powerful. And you quoted it.
And she has also mentioned that, well, that was Fatima, Muhtarma Fatima Jinnah, very correctly mentioned and very, आपने बहुत अच्छी तरह से you just quoted her. Another lady whom she's also आज के current दौर में my personal favorite also is Lieutenant General Nigar. So
Nigar Johar.
Nigar Johar.
Yes, correct.
Yes. So, I mean, can you just share your thoughts on that?
You spoke to me about that you had watched a drama, but I had met her.
Yes, it's a beautiful drama and film they have made.
This was an interesting one. I didn't even think that she would give me an interview. She was, I think, a major general before when I did it, and then she was promoted, and she's the only female lieutenant general, I believe, from the Pakistan Army. And
three-star
she's
general?
she's
The first one.
Head of the
first-
Army Medical
yeah,
Corps.
in the
Yes.
yes, and she is phenomenal. She is down to earth, and she's a powerhouse at the same time, and that's pretty difficult to do. And manage the medical hospital, run it, and just do everything that she did, and her life story that came out from there, from that interview as well. I think that was one of my personal favorites.
Yeah, because she's also
No,
an
Nigar is
inspiration.
amazing. She's from Suwabi. She is the niece of a very good friend of mine, Major Amir, who himself was a very important officer of the ISI in the good old days.
Oh, wow.
So, she comes from a very blue-blooded military background. Her parents were in the
But
army
she had
also.
a tough life.
Absolutely, very tough
Very
life.
tough life. But okay, let's just come to a lighter side of what you've been writing. Like, you have focused on social and culture. So, do you think there is a Pakistani culture? Okay, I'll ask Mushahid Sab first. Do you think we have a Pakistani culture, or it's an acquired culture from different countries around, like India, Persia, South Asia, or do we have something?
I will let him answer, and then I will give my take on it.
Okay.
Or you can answer first.
No, please go ahead.
This in the globalized world, there's a lot of fusion of different cultures given our different heritages. Now, if you talk of, in Britain, if you talk of British culture and cuisine, tikka kebab is part of their culture.
It has become
Doner kebab is part of the culture. Hummus is now become, so
There's a fusion
so
now.
there is a fusion. In Pakistan, I mentioned the strong society. For the first 40 years of Pakistan, till the Cold War, our narrative was essentially defined by the state, by the Cold War mentality, which was insecurity, saying so-and-so doesn't agree with me, he's a traitor, so-and-so is against the national interest, strong center means a strong Pakistan. After the Cold War, I would say in the 1990s, the state narrative is now being more people-driven. Our soft power in the 50s, what was the soft power in the 50s? Sports. People knew Fazl Mahmood, the cricket team ne bada kiya. We won medals. Or PIA, great people to fly with. आपको पता है उस बारे में
No longer,
Jacqueline
but yes.
Kennedy traveled PIA की हमारी शनाख्त क्या थी या PTV Urdu dramas which dominated India cultural की बात करते हैं dominated South Asia because of their creativity, because of their content, and this shows how much creativity we have. 30s, अब last 30 years में it's more people driven, and I think Pakistan has become that way. People who were called traitors in the 50s, 60s, Ghaffar Khan, now we have the Ghaffar Khan, Bacha Khan International Airport.
Exactly.
Abdul Samad Khan Achakzai, his son was governor of Balochistan. Ataullah Mangal, his son was chief minister of Balochistan. Mir Ghazbas Bizinjo, his son was minister for the most sensitive post in the past, handling Gwadar port, minister of ports and shipping. So times have changed. We have accepted respect, and this is a strength of Haya's book also, the respect for diversity in Pakistan. It's unity in diversity. It is not a monolithic truth or a monolithic culture, or it is not dominated by one province or one person or one party or one institution. You cannot. Neither a political party nor any institution, even the Fauj, they cannot impose their view. This is, okay, ji, this is the officially certified truth, and this is what we say goes. Pakistanis, we have a culture of resistance also. And it's a very vocal culture.
That's what resilience is all about. So Haya, you wanted to add up to
My take is slightly amended to this, in addition or amended, is that I think that we have been, in the past few years, known by our politics. That was our identification, and I think that needs to be changed to the rest of the world. And I think that's where it was coming from. It wasn't coming from politics at all. It was like, we need to change that. We don't want to go to the end of the world and say, well, this is what happened, and this is what protest is what happened in your country, or something volatile. We need to be, as someone said, resilient Pakistan, you need to do better. But I asked the person, did you even read the book before saying that? Before saying that, did you need the book? You need to read through the book to actually say, yes, we do identify ourselves as resilient, and yes, we do need to do better. We need to inculcate a lot more within us to to make this stand, and we need to do it together.
So that is what
That was coming, that was the thought process behind this.
So you, while obviously touching on these very sensitive issues, you have very aptly touched upon the various, like the gender issues, the women
Gender-based violence.
and women-based violence, and you had covered, you've given a complete article to the movie Joyland.
Yes, that's
So-
one of them. That's just one, that's one out of 120, yes, over.
So, and where you mentioned that how we have to accept the rights of people, whether it's gender-based or
Of any kind. I mean, I think the state that was created in an answer to one of the questions that was asked about, are we living in Jinnah's Pakistan? No, we're not, right? But because it was envisioned differently, but we're living in the Pakistan that he created. That it was envisioned differently for minority communities to have their rights. The white in the flag is very important to recall, and I think that's also a running theme in the book, that we're not there yet, but we are making strides and changes. We are doing
we
this.
have a long way to go.
We have a long way to go, but there is something that's coming out from here. It is a voice, and it is coming out. I don't think that we should ignore this. I don't think that we're, you know, when people say that this country, I heard this, and somebody I know said, this country is going to implode and on itself, and I'm sorry, but I don't think so. I mean, but again, you can call it naivete from a new author. Perhaps you can say that, but I still hold this, that I don't think so. I don't think that we're at the bottom end of the barrel, as people say. I think we can fall a lot more further, true, but I think that we are going to make it through, and we are going to scrape through, but we are going to make it.
I think that's exactly what Mushahid Saab said when we were just talking here, that he and his family, they left the beautiful world of West and returned to Pakistan.
By the way, I'd like to mention my late mother, Mrs. Dure Samin Syed, is a winner of the Fatima Jinnah Gold Medal for her contribution as a member of the Zanana Muslim League in the 40s.
So you have a
because she was
lot.
fundraising. But you just mentioned about gender and minority issues. That's Jinnah's Pakistan. Who was his foreign minister? Sir Muhammad Zafrullah Khan, who was one of the best foreign ministers of Pakistan, along with the other two I name is Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and Agha Shahi, the three best foreign ministers we have. He spoke up for Muslim causes in the 50s, and his speeches were mentioned. And you mentioned about gender issues also, Haya, and that's very important to recognize that. We in the Senate, when it happened, there was the issue of a killing of a transgender in Peshawar. I raised that issue. And then we had a committee on marginalized communities, and then we passed the historic transgender bill.
That's correct.
In Parliament, which is one of the first ones which is there. So I just have one point of a minor, just picking up this thing, on the issue of Israel, which is, you said rightly.
I knew that was coming. I expected that from yesterday. Yes.
You said we should only discuss, if only they negotiate on the existence and recognition of the Palestinian people, which is
Correct.
fine. But all of this should not, you said it's not linked with Kashmir. It is linked with Kashmir, because Kashmir and Palestine are two issues of occupation, two issues of illegal occupation, two issues where UN resolutions have been defied, and two issues which will not go away, because they are an example of resilient causes which refuse to die, and people who refuse to give up, whether it's the people of Palestine or the people of Kashmir.
But it's
And I think
been
that's
decades that these two issues are still withstanding. And
May I?
at
time does not finish issues of principle. Otherwise, the principles of international law were established 100 years ago, and you said they have been overtaken by no. And the ground realities, both in occupied Kashmir and occupied Palestine, show there's resistance to repression.
May
The
I say
issues are
something?
alive.
But it's the handful of those people, if I say today what is happening in Gaza, and today what the Palestinians are going through, and the whole world is just raising their voices, and poor thing, they are dying. But that's an issue which needs, I think as a unified world, people should, or the governments should take some stand.
Yes, they
to
should.
bring an end to
And they have to make a distinction between the oppressed and the oppressor.
Exactly.
That is the
Definitely,
key.
it's high time now.
Moral clarity is very important. And I think that moral clarity shows in a book also.
Exactly.
Could we go back to the book? I stand by my opinion. I think we should separate those two issues. I will stand by my opinion.
The principles are the same.
May I? They can and not be. I will stand by that. I think we need to normalize a lot of our ties. I think we need to move on. Otherwise, we'll be going round and round. And I do intend to write that, and I need to. And one of the things that is a running theme in my book is any kind of extremism. We should learn how to reject this. I think that would bringing you back to the book as well as
And I think
the.
with this,
I'll just conclude with a quotation of Malcolm X, who said, "Extremism in the cause of justice is no vice."
yes, very well said. So, Haya, now I think our time is also up, and the lady there, she's showing me the.
She's
wrap
showing
up.
us the 10 minutes.
the
I
10
think,
minutes up.
do
So
we
any
have
last few lines which you would like to add
Actually,
and comment?
I'd
and then
like
we'll ask
to.
Mushahid.
We had a couple of young people in the crowd, which I was told that they would be coming. Well, young or old, we'd like to open up the forum for anyone to have a question.
Okay, I think we have
I
questions.
think.
Okay,
Do we have?
Questions both.
Maybe have 5 more minutes.
Questions
I think there's a lot of
Can we take
questions.
5 questions.
Okay.
And
Fast
excuse me, could you also just keep it short?
It's working. Okay. I am not the youngest, but perhaps the oldest in the crowd.
You're more than welcome.
One of the oldest.
You're welcome.
The older people there.
Ambassador Sarwar Naqvi. This subject is extremely interesting, and I have a few comments, not questions.
Okay.
You see, the whole idea of Pakistan need not be debated. I mean, there are so many countries in the world which don't go around seeking justification for their existence. Pakistan is like any other country, and we are good or bad. We have survived. Nehru said that we will last only 6 months. We have been here more than 77 years. The other point is that the whole concept of a failed state is very erroneous. It was given by my friend, I knew him in Washington, Robert Kaplan, and there is no justification for categorizing states as failed or successful. States go through a cycle. They are in existence by themselves.
Sir, could you please keep it short because
Yeah,
we are
just-
really running out of time.
If you allow me 2 more sentences. The example that Kaplan gave was of Congo and of Rwanda. They are both successful stories in South
I don't think she
Africa.
mentions a failed state at all.
At all. I
Sorry?
actually
Her book
said-
doesn't mention a
mention
failed
a
No,
state at all.
I am just clarifying this
Okay,
for
you
my
clarify.
younger
Okay.
colleagues,
Acha.
because this topic always comes up, that whether we are a failed state or not. So I think we should all rest assured that there is no such thing as a failed state, and this is just a theory that was launched and is wrong. So, and thirdly, I think Pakistan has enough potential as a state to find its own place in the world. It will take time, but it will find its own place.
Do we have any other questions?
Thank you.
Maybe a question?
I
The
think,
lady over there, please.
We'll prefer
Yeah.
that if there are questions instead of just
Yes.
statements.
Yes, please stand up. Yes. Thank you. Okay.
I understand the time is short, but any story that you reminds of Jinnah or you reminds but which kind of man he was?
I don't know if this. Did you say a story?
He says any story.
Any
you
story
have of
that you reminds of Jinnah,
Um,
or that reminds you what you think that which kind of man he was?
The only story that I actually that sticks out for me, and I don't know. Again, we don't have enough time. Was the one that was narrated by the Citizens Foundation, and they had done a whole project on pre-independent stories, and this is an interesting one that you actually asked. That this is something that she and I had discussed, and it's relevant to what we have here today. Where Jinnah had claimed that Pakistan will not be made on Jali votes. Has anyone heard that story at all? And maybe it's relevant to the elections coming up. And this is a narration by an elderly woman who was at that time very young. And she had, at that time were gathering up the youth of Pakistan. They were to help out, and this was not an ordinary election like the hybrid civilians running around. This was actually the creation of a nation state. And in those days, Jinnah had stayed at her family's house, and he had encouraged all the youth to gather around and help as much as they can. And here's this young lady, and what was going around in her head, she goes and she puts in 2 jali votes, jali being fake votes. And this has always stayed with me, because Jinnah being the man that he was, it comes out that when he found out, he was livid, he was furious. And he made her or somebody go and take out the exact number of votes, and his reasoning, I don't know how authentic or true the story is, but it was, his reasoning was that Pakistan will not be made on jali votes.
Very good. And don't forget that none of his relatives benefit from creation of Pakistan. And whatever legacy or money he had, he gave it to educational institutions. Aligarh Muslim University, Islamia College Peshawar, and Sindh Madrasatul Islam. So that is the focus on education.
So we'll take one more question because the time is really up.
The young lady, please, go ahead.
Okay,
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hafsa, and my question is for Ms. Haya. So Pakistan is undoubtedly a resilient nation, but at the same time, no nation should have to go through so many socio-economic struggles where its people have to show resilience time and again. How far do you think we are from getting to a point where we can say Pakistan is prosperous more than it is resilient? Thank you.
We are pretty far, but it doesn't mean that hope is out. I think that as soon as we focus on our educational system and unify that, I think we're going to be on our way. And I think I've spoken about that consistently throughout the book, that unless we focus on that and unify the system and stay away from radicalized thoughts or processes and extremist thoughts, we're not going to get anywhere. But we have to teach our children the distinction. We have to teach our children the distinction of what is, for example, the Palestinian cause versus an extremist group like Hamas, and actually teach them the distinction of, just because it looks like a Muslim or eats like a Muslim, it doesn't mean that what they're selling to you is the truth.
I just want to mention, Hamas is not an extremist group. Hamas is a democratically elected political organization. In January 2006, there were elections in Gaza, and Hamas was elected representative of Gaza, and the elections were supervised by President Jimmy Carter, and I quote Jimmy Carter, he said, "This is the freest election I've seen in the Middle East." So I think that right to resist is a part of international law.
But coming back to you, I think that the more that we educate our children and create that distinction, and the lesser protests that we have that halt the country to a complete stop, I think dialogue is what is going to be very important. Instead of overriding what people have to say and putting them and pushing them into a corner, that is where resilient Pakistan is going to come out. It's not about like shutting a person up and literally cutting them down. It's really that we are lacking dialogue. We are lacking the ability to have two viewpoints together. I think what your question is, it's pretty relevant. We do have a lot and a long way to go, but we're not there yet.
So we do have light at the end of the tunnel, and as Haya's mentioned that we have to have a dialogue, we have to have, give a sort of positivity to each other's
But
opinion.
it shouldn't be a dialogue of the deaf.
Exactly. I mean, you have to take it positively, and then the best thing is that focus on education, try to give better and better education and to our masses, bring them up to a level where they can raise their voices. Instead of going out on the roads and protesting, we should use our voice to take it to the right corners. And with this positivity, I think I'll thank my guests, Haya and Mushahid and Syed, for their brilliant contribution to what we've just discussed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.